Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the After the Frame podcast. We're taking a little break this week from the big blockbusters of July. We're doing for episode 3. I know what you did last summer. My name is Malik, and I am joined, as always, by.
Hi, my name is Matt.
And yeah, we're gonna break down this movie scene by scene like we always do. This one, as I said, is a little bit less of a blockbuster, a little bit of a nostalgia grab thing. I wasn't too excited to watch this movie. I had seen the first two way back when blockbusters were still a thing, like the actual store blockbusters when you could rent things. And yeah, I had to watch like a little YouTube video to like kind of refresh my memory. I hadn't seen it too many times. I had to remind myself of some of the intertwining plots. How about you? Were you a big fan of the original two?
No, not at all. I did not care for either one, like at all.
Overall thoughts on this one? I know this portion we're keeping non-spoilers right now, but did you feel the same for this one? Did this one kind of just not really do anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time. I didn't rewatch the original one, so I don't know how it stands comparative to the other ones, but I'm not really a big slasher fan to begin with, so I went into this with pretty low expectations. But overall, it was fine. I mean, I feel like if you're into slashers, you'll probably have more fun with it than I did. There are plenty of bloody kills and jump scares to keep things moving. But for me, it was kind of forgettable. You know, I never really felt much tension or excitement, and honestly, I laughed more than I got scared, which probably isn't what they were going for.
So this is the first movie since we've been doing these episodes that you and I didn't watch together. We watched it different days. Yeah, the audience I was with was doing a lot of laughing as well. So I don't know if it was meant to be funny. I'm not really sure what tone they were going for. The original series was made by the guy who did the Scream series, and that's meant to be more of a parody of scary movies. My big issue with this one was that they didn't really do anything that was different from the originals. It's basically the same template where you have this killer in the fisherman slicker, and he's got the hook, and this group of kids does something that they shouldn't have done. They're trying to cover up somebody dying. And then it happens on the 4th of July. They come back a year later on the 4th of July. Somebody knows what they did. And it's a whole mystery of who knows and who to trust. And it's basically the same plot points, but with a new cast of people. I was entertained, but it left a lot to be desired. It wasn't anything great. So those are all of my thoughts, the non-spoiler thoughts of it for me.
For those, who haven't seen the previous ones or are going into this one blind, you already touched on it, but it's basically a legacy sequel to the 97 movie, but it's the exact same setup. 5 friends accidentally kill someone in a car accident. They cover it up, and a year later, somebody comes back to make them pay. It's a solid setup, and the movie definitely sticks to that formula. Nothing too surprising, but it works. That said, it's not like it was boring. To me, it moved at a good pace, and the performances were actually pretty fun, but it just didn't really bring anything new to the table. The scares were super predictable, and it leaned way too hard for my liking on cheap jump scares that didn't really land. But what actually worked for me were the funny moments and the performances. The 2 leads were both great. They seemed like they knew exactly what kind of movie they were in and just had fun with it. There was a lot of Gen Z humor sprinkled throughout, which, not saying too much here, but that was probably my favorite part. I picked up on it. I don't know how familiar you are with AMC, but, when I was growing up, AMC was my go-to theater. And there's a slight little jab at the Nicole Kidman opening scene. When they're watching fireworks at the very beginning, there's a like going in with Nicole Kidman's monologue. They keep poking fun at that. It's like this is where the magic happens, and it just made me laugh. But if you're a fan of the original movie, I could see how this one might rub you the wrong way, especially with how it wraps up some of the characters' stories. I don't have any real attachment to the franchise, so I didn't really care that much. But even I thought the twist at the end was kind of silly. Like, I'm usually pretty good at just going along with whatever, but this one stretched it a little too far. So yeah, overall, I'd say it's an okay slasher. If you're into the genre or loved the original, you'll probably enjoy it more than I did. For me, though, just pretty, good for a few laughs, but nothing I'll be thinking about tomorrow or in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. On your point, like, yeah, we're not spoiling it here just yet, but I actually hated the twist at the end. We'll get into it more as the episode goes along, but from the majority of people I've even talked to that have watched the original and saw this, they also did not like it. I rated it lower than Jurassic World Rebirth, the episode that we did a few weeks ago. However, I was more entertained in this just because it was just a fun, goofy romp. So, yeah, if there's nothing else, we can just get into the spoiler portion of this and break down the movie scene by scene if you're ready.
Yeah, let's dive in.
The movie starts off. I have Ava. It's who we meet in the beginning. She, to me, I felt was kind of the Jennifer Love Hewitt character, who is Julie, and she appears in this movie. In the originals, I feel like she's kind of taking over for that role, where you're kind of seeing a lot of things through her eyes as the audience. So, yeah, we end up just meeting her, and she's driving back into town, and you see that she's nervous about going somewhere and seeing her ex-boyfriend. And we find out that she is going to her friend's engagement party, and then we meet the rest of her friends. She has her ex-boyfriend named Milo. The two that are engaged, Danica, who is at this point her best friend, they say, and then she's getting married to another friend of theirs named Teddy. They are all the main cast that we're going to be dealing with going forward. Within this, we also meet Stevie, who we find out kind of became estranged from them. Her dad left, they say, and she kind of was dealing with depression and alcohol and went to rehab and all of that and kind of lost touch with them. Just so happens she's working with a group of people who was hired for the event, the engagement event, and she's cleaning up, and they end up seeing her at the end of the night. They invite her out to see fireworks where they always used to, because as I said, this takes place on the 4th of July like the original one in the 90s, and she agrees to go with them. And yeah, they drive off and they're going to a spot to watch the fireworks. They have a little bit of a tease of what happened in the first movie where, you know, obviously they run over somebody in the first movie and that's the body to dispose of. The guy, Teddy, who's driving, he kind of fakes like he drives over somebody to fool the audience, but they don't hit anyone. This one, I'll get your thoughts on the whole death compared to the first one. The first one, as I said, they run over somebody. In this, Teddy's just acting like an asshole and is just in the middle of the road and creates a guy having to swerve off of the side to avoid him, and basically he just falls off the edge. How did you like that change from the original?
It was an adjustment. I feel like the adjustment is more kind of aligned with, you know, the newer people, the new generation, like getting accustomed to this series franchise. And it's something that, you know, might make a little more sense for them because, you know, at the very beginning of the movie, you know, things are going fine until Teddy starts messing around on the road, pretending to almost get hit by cars. But then a car, you know, actually crashes while trying to avoid him. And from there, things just escalate.
Yeah, the car veers off of the road and is dangling over a cliff. The kids try and help as much as they can, but at the end of the day, they're not superhuman and the car just falls over. They can't catch the car. They go through the whole dilemma like in the original where it's like, should we call the cops? They make a point of Stevie wanting to do something to go down there and check on him, as well as Ava. The rest of them are kind of just like, oh, there's nothing we can do, especially Teddy and Danica, his fiance. They want to be absolved of everything. Teddy seems like he's trying not to get into trouble at all. What I thought was interesting, the difference between this group of kids and the ones from the 97 movie, this one seemed a little bit more like Teddy and Danica are coming from a rich background and they are just able to use their influence to be able to sweep things under the rug comparatively to the original, where it was just a group of kids graduating and they just didn't want their futures to be put at, you know, a stop. So they concoct this plan not to do anything and to not say anything and hope nobody finds out. Whereas I feel like with this one, it was a little bit more of a, my dad will just take care of it. You know, Teddy's dad is, like we find out, very big in the town, very rich, has basically transformed the town. But yeah, they end up talking to the dad about it, and he's the only person that they tell. Teddy kind of forces everybody to agree not to say anything about it. They make a pact not to say anything, and then that's where we leave them. Ava is obviously very upset because she wanted to say something. They lied to her about going to the police station to give their statement, and they end up just taking her back to the house. And then that's where the opening scenes basically end, and then we fast forward to a year later.
Both opening scenes really just kind of set the stakes for the upcoming events in each film. But this one specifically, you know, you touched on Teddy calling the cops, and it's a very, you know, modern day set film. So Teddy calls the cops, but instead of going to the station, Danica just drives them all home. And like you mentioned, the rich influences, they convince everyone to keep it a secret. They promise that Teddy's rich dad can cover for him, but that group, it clearly puts a strain on everybody.
Right. Yeah, and then that is seen a year later. So I kind of like how they did this, kind of like a little bit of a fake out with the engagement to the bridal shower. I thought this was pretty funny. But yeah, pick up a year later, and Ava, it opens with her hooking up with this girl in the bathroom at the airport. We find out that she's coming back to go to Danica's bridal shower now, which we're assuming is with Teddy, who we just left off with. But we come to find out that in the year's time, they have broken off the engagement, and she is now within that time frame been engaged to another guy. But yeah, so we meet Tyler, and she's a podcaster, and as if there's not enough podcasters out there. They're just so pretentious. Everybody just wants to start a podcast now. Any schmucks that just have a camera and a mic just think they can start a podcast. So I'm just sick of them. So this character, I couldn't stand her. But yeah, she ends up convincing Ava to take her into town. We find out she's a horror podcaster, and she's actually doing a story on the 90s murders from the first movie. So she convinces them to take her into the town so she can do her investigation. They go to this bridal shower. We find out that she has a brand new fiance now. We don't yet find out what really happened to her and Teddy, but that'll unfold. Things go exactly the same way as they were before. A year later, she's opening up all of her gifts, and then she gets a little card. She thinks, it might be money. And then we get the reveal. Somebody has sent her a note saying, I know what you did last summer. She knows for a fact that only the group and Teddy's father know about it. But because she's broken up with Teddy, she thinks he might be behind it, messing with her. So she calls over those who are in attendance that were in that original pact from a year ago, calls them into the kitchen, shows them the note. They all surmise, it might be Teddy. They don't really know what to do. They're all taken aback by this, obviously. Then we move for the rest of the group to go and see Teddy. He's like in a boat, which I thought was very weird because he has like a house that's not too far away, but I guess he's just staying on his dad's boat or something. When he sees it, he's freaked out as well. He had nothing to do with it. So then here we have this giant mystery that we have on our hands again.
I know one thing that we see when Ava, is getting back. She comes home, getting ready for the bridal shower. She meets the podcaster, Tyler, the true crime podcaster. She is very enthusiastic and energetic, trying to ask questions about this Southport massacre. And Ava and the group just kind of like brush it off. But one thing that I thought was interesting was at the party, Ava notices that Stevie seems to have replaced her as Danica's best friend, and then things take a turn when Danica opens the note. And then she brushes it off at first, but is secretly freaking out, and then tells the group that she thinks Teddy sent it because she dumped him.
To your point, Stevie now has become a lot more close to Danica in the year that we've just passed through, and Ava and her used to be very close, Ava and Danica, and then as you said, that we see a little bit of awkwardness when she shows up. But everybody is obviously very thrown by this note, as you would be. And then now they're going to start trying to figure out what to do about it, basically. The next scene, which is why I feel like they literally introduced this new fiance, Danica and him are cleaning up after the party, and she says that she's going to go upstairs and she's going to take a bath. This is where, as you said, a little bit of the Gen Z humor. I feel like Danica, everything that she said, she was talking about a lot, like, it's giving this. And she has I forgot the guy's name, but she goes and she sees a guy for empathy, like he's an empath or something.
Oh, it's like flirt, something stupid.
Yeah, something like that. And she goes to him and like gets like, readings and whatnot. So she's that kind of girl. So she goes upstairs to take a bath, and she's doing her meditation. So she has on her headphones, can't hear anything downstairs. Her fiance is cleaning up, and then the porch lights turn on and off. They're motion censored, and he goes over to check on what it is, and then a harpoon just shoots straight through him. And we see, just like from the OG movies, we got a fisherman and a slicker. You can't see his face. He's got a hook, and now he's got this harpoon gun, and just kills the fiance and puts up like a little bit of a display, I guess you could call it. Writes blood on the wall. You can't erase the past. She comes down from her bath and sees that he's dead, and obviously is distraught, calls her friends, calls the cops. They go to the police, and now things are escalating a lot more quickly. So now they need to really figure out what the hell they're going to do.
That poor fiance, just purely existing just for a murder element, just he's caught in the wreckage.
Yeah, this was another issue that I had with the original films as well as this one, because we find out in all the films in this franchise that this fisherman is driven by revenge. But yet, the first person that they always kill is somebody that literally has nothing to do with their accident whatsoever, just so we can take out somebody who's not the main cast. So this
Yep.
poor person literally didn't know them a year ago and was just standing there and just gets taken out. And my big issue with this scene, with the consistency, I told you I found like a lot of inconsistencies in this movie. Go figure. If this fisherman is their big plan is to get revenge on this group, why would you kill the fiance and not just go upstairs and kill Danica when she's literally unarmed and not paying attention? But nope, just leaves her to live, to tell everybody about it. These are the little things in this movie that kind of just upset me, where I'm like, that doesn't really make any sense. But
Yeah, no, I get that. And then, after that poor guy gets murdered, the group kind of rallies around Danica. We see Teddy comes back, and Teddy's dad even gets involved. Teddy's dad even posts cops outside her house. But from this point, it's clear that they're all starting to unravel a little bit.
We see that the group, they're trying to get their bearings. They start throwing around their theories and everything. They talk a little bit about everything that happened back in the 90s, how they also were given a note, and obviously it's like a legend within the town. They theorize that they think maybe Tyler, this podcaster, might be somewhat involved. I think it was Milo throughout the theory that she was asking a lot of questions when they were coming in. Maybe she's so obsessed with this thing that happened back in the 90s that now she's trying to recreate it for content. And then because of that, Ava goes ahead and hits her up to meet up and go to one of the sites from the original movie where one of the deaths took place. And they're searching around, and she tells Ava to stay downstairs. She's going to check on something. And lo and behold, the fisherman attacks Ava. Ava kind of goes through a little bit of a skirmish with the fisherman and kind of beats him. The fisherman does what he does in this movie quite often, is that when he's slightly off camera for a bit, he just vanishes without a trace or sound. Tyler comes back and they try and regroup. And then I've written here, I don't even know if you had an explanation for this, but a random cage falls on Ava. We don't know if it's from the fisherman or not, and traps Ava in, and Tyler runs off to get help, and then the fisherman catches her. The fisherman is doing a terrible job of swiping at her with the hook, but eventually gets to her and kills her. Stevie comes in to the door. Ava unscrews some of the screws on the cage and gets out, and they escape and see that the fisherman has now killed Tyler, so that eliminates her from the suspects.
Yeah, I mean, from this point, the movie is kind of going full slasher. Ava meets up with Tyler again for this crime tour of the town, and they're at the old department store from the original movie. And then, the killer attacks. Ava escapes, but Tyler is killed and strung up. The one thing that caught me, and I know I was nobody yell at me for texting in the movie theater, but I texted you as I was watching it. I'm like, I already know where this is going, because Tyler's character in the whole conflict with the fisherman is able to pull off the mask of the fisherman, and she goes, "It's you." And earlier on in the film, she had touched on like, hey, I tried contacting those still around and involved in the events from the original. So alarm bells were kind of going off in my head that it was going to be somebody from the original one, because I was like, there's no way it's not a legacy character.
Right. And spoiler alert, that's exactly what it is. We find out that obviously it's a two-man job, that there are two killers running around, but But yeah, she takes off the mask in the struggle and sees that it's somebody who will be revealed later, and she recognizes them. So I felt like in that instance, when she did that, it eliminated a few people for me. She had only at that point met Milo and Ava. And obviously Ava was downstairs, and I would have been very shocked if it was Milo doing this. Anybody else that she would have said that, oh, it's you. I was like, I didn't really see anybody else in the group. I think I kind of understand where you're coming from, that it had to have been somebody that she knows from the previous research and interviews.
Yeah. But yeah, Tyler's killed, strung up, and then Ava barely makes it out alive. And the cops, police, and people just crowd and, are curious as to what's unfolding. Ava then decides that the cops are useless. So cutting to the next scene, she goes to find Julie James, the original final girl from the first film, who's now a professor. And we get some back and forth dialogue with them. Julie's like, I made a vow to never go back to that place ever since the events of the original film. But the one thing that I kind of thought was funny was it's a little ominous, but it's also kind of like, poking the bear a little bit. Julie asks, "What did you do last summer?" And that really procs Julie's investigation. Julie advises her, Ava, to dig into the victim, who we come to find his name is Sam Cooper. And Julie is saying, that the killer's motive is probably personal.
We actually find out that back in the bridal shower scene, when the group is talking about the note that Danica gets, we actually find out that they actually already know Sam Cooper. They had already done some research on him. They found it hard to not at least try and look up who this person might have been. They make a note that this Sam Cooper had no next of kin. He didn't have a family or anything like that, which will be also another thing going forward. Ava notices that the police are basically in I didn't get his name, but Teddy's father. We find out that he came into the town, bought up a bunch of real estate, is trying to basically just revamp the whole town. In essence, has erased the whole legacy or history of what happened in the first movie. Because after the first movie, they say in the 90s, people were obviously not trying to visit. Nobody was moving there because there was a killer on the loose. So he has kind of just over time bought out places, made things nicer, and has effectively made a lot of people forget what happened back in the 90s. Because of that, he has the cops in his pocket. He basically, in essence, runs the whole town without being the mayor, or he's just behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Within that scene, they decide to set up a town hall meeting in which they are trying to politic their way out of any type of accusing or any type of blame of what might be happening, just to preserve everybody's interest in the town and not make anybody think that a killer's back on the loose. So at this town hall, they try and convince the public that Tyler killed herself, that she was very troubled and she got off her meds. And, it was, a very traumatic thing that happened to Ava and her friends. But unfortunately, from what they can tell, there's no killer. In which case, we get the reveal of Ray, Freddie Prinze Jr. from the original, the other legacy character used in this movie. And he comes in and he basically says, you guys are just trying to erase what happened before. You guys know this has happened. And they are describing the exact same thing that happened to me. A fisherman with a slicker is coming around with a hook. You guys need to basically do something about this.
It was a good way to introduce Ray. He comes in, he steps forward claiming that they need to actually stand up to this killer. It was a good way, without going too overboard, to introduce another important legacy character. And then we later find out that Ray is Stevie's boss, and the group asks for help on how to take down this killer, considering he was in this situation. And Ray essentially tells them they can't run and just stick together.
Yeah. And taking his advice, they immediately split up and go into different areas of the town. So we got, funny enough, they put Teddy and Danica together, which I thought would have been very awkward, seeing as how, they have some history. I don't know why they would volunteer to go off together. They're heading to a graveyard to do some investigation on Sam Cooper. Danica notices that somebody has put fresh flowers on his grave. And she's like, well, if he didn't have anybody that, he had no next of kin, no family, who the hell did this? So they ask somebody who works at the graveyard to check the cameras, and so they can see who came in. And as he's checking the cameras, as soon as he went to go and check the cameras, I was like, oh yeah, so the fisherman's going to kill him. And yep, that's exactly what happened. The fisherman comes up behind him and slashes him in the neck with the hook. They're still standing out there waiting for this poor dead man that was just trying to do his job. Then Teddy says, oh, I'm going to go check on him. And when he goes in there, the fisherman now takes the opportunity while Danica is by herself to attack her. Similar type of action as what happened with Ava and Tyler in that first scene. She nearly avoids getting killed because the villain literally has her dead, takes his sweet time, raising the hook, and then by the time he's about to come down with it, Teddy runs in, knocks him over, and then as soon as he knocks him over, the guy just disappears, and then he takes Danica back to her house, and the rest of the group go to a junkyard where they have impound vehicles, and they're investigating the car that crashed that night a year ago. They don't have much information on it. They don't have, license plate, make and model or anything like that. They tell him that it should have come in like July 4th or July 5th the year prior. He says he only has one entry. Conveniently, it's completely totaled. And he actually says that it is owned by the pastor in the town. who we meet at the town hall meeting, and that raises a little bit more suspicion. So now they have the next person that they're going to go question.
I can appreciate them trying to take matters into their own hands, but as a film, I thought these scenes were super duper rushed. Like, it was just one thing after another. Like, you knew what was going to happen anyway, and it was just kind of there for the audience to see. I feel like you could have trimmed down the fat a little bit, like, especially in the scene with Danica and Teddy at the cemetery. And, Danica gets spooked by the fisherman, and the fisherman's just standing there, like, bro, like, if you're gonna do something, like, don't just pop up behind her. Like, but okay. Typical horror movie trope. I thought the reveal of Father Judah, the local preacher, being the one who owned the car was kind of interesting, and we'll come to find out more about him as the film goes along.
In the next scene here, we see Julie back at her apartment, which, as we said, we find out is like 45 minutes away from their town. She's getting notifications on her phone talking about motion sensor in the front, motion sensor in the back, and then she grabs scissors. She thinks a fisherman's coming, and we just see it's Ray. Back in the second movie, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, we find out that they got married, but now in this movie, we find out that they were divorced, and yeah, they don't really talk very much. But Ray was just reaching out an olive branch saying he hears that now the killer is back. He wanted to just go and check on her and make sure, what with somebody running around, that she was safe. They get into a little bit of a spat. He says that she's very irresponsible for telling Ava that they need to go and basically take matters into their own hands. But she said that that's kind of what she did and what he did, and they survived. So she gave the best advice she could. And then the conversation's interrupted by Stevie calling Ray and then Ava calling Julie. And then we cut to the next scene where they're back at the house. This is the only scene I think they have together until the big climax.
Yeah, they don't get much screen time as a pair of the two legacy characters, but yeah, this was a good kind of point to tie the old in with the new and have sort of an established bridge between what's going on.
Back at the house now, we see Danica because she was getting beat up by this fisherman. She's in bed now. They're all in her room and they're talking about what their next move is. They all suggest to bunk up. Everybody stays at the same house. I thought this was interesting because they bunk up once again. We've got Danica and Teddy, despite the fact of their past. I thought that was very weird to bunk them up instead of just doing the two guys together and then Danica and Ava just stay together. I guess they wanted to just throw in a little bit of the sexual tension, as we'll see. But Danica has completely gotten over her fiance dying like a day or two ago and is cuddling up with Teddy in the bed, and I didn't understand what the hell was going on.
Yeah, that was one complaint I have, from the start of the movie where that happens to now. And, you would expect some grieving and things like that, but she's just she's so lackadaisical about it. It's just, hey, come here, I need some company. You want to cuddle? It's like, get me out of here.
Yeah, you find that a lot in this movie. Like, every death that they have, they don't give the characters a lot of time to really let that sit because they have to go on to the next person who's dying or go on to the next scene. So yeah, she's gotten over her fiance perfectly fine. Her and Teddy are back cuddling like as if nothing even happened over the last year. And then we got Ava and Milo, who obviously were dating once upon a time. They don't really exchange much words. They kind of just exchange glances, and the next thing you know, they try and start. Yep, they just start trying to hook up. They don't really get into it much with Ava. It's not a plot point that gets explained or anything in this movie. But when she was hooking up with Tyler earlier on in the airport, she clearly likes it rough. When she's about to have sex with Milo, she asks him to do some things he's not so comfortable with.
She asks him to choke her, and he's just like, huh? He's like, what, huh? And then he goes outside. He goes outside to psych himself up, and then poor Milo.
Yeah, I thought that this whole, everybody's decision making from just this scene just didn't make any sense to me, because, it's one thing to be jarred by a sexual experience, which I can appreciate. Milo's just not into that whole thing, whatever Ava's got going on. Not kink shaming or anything, but Ava's business is her business. He's not so into it. He goes out to take a breath, like you said, hype himself up. He's like, if she wants me to punish her, why can't I just do it, But the stupid thing to me is that he sees, while he's hyping himself up and talking to himself, sees his phone is dying. There's 4 other people in the house that you would have to assume somebody has the same phone as you or a phone charger. And he stupidly leaves the house to go to his car when there's a killer out clearly trying to kill them. And then, he fucking dies because of it. He goes outside to get his charger. And then when he heads back, he can't get in through the same door he went through. I guess it locked behind him. He's trying to get Ava's attention by the window, and the fisherman comes up from behind and chokes him out, puts him in his car, takes his car keys, drives off. Ava hears the car leaving. And then from that, she texts or tries to call him, doesn't answer. And then the fisherman takes the phone and texts her saying, I need some space. I'll call you when I'm ready. And then that's how that scene ends. I just thought that everybody in this scene was completely foolish. I didn't understand it.
That's a good way to put it. And I mean, the foolishness doesn't stop. Because we cut to the following morning, and Ava and Danica decide, hey, we're gonna go talk to Father Judah now. No care in the world about where Milo is, and there's a short segment where Teddy's leaving Milo a voicemail, like, hey, like, are you good? Like, what I heard what happened, la da 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 da.
And he's off to the gym.
Yep. And we cut to Ava and Danica going to talk to the preacher, and when they confront him, Ava is talking, full detail about trauma and things like that, while Danica sneaks off. She's going to the restroom, and she finds these disturbing notes and photos linking the preacher to Sam Cooper, and we don't really find too much more about that, because from what I can recall, the preacher was going to go get Ava like a book about how to like cope with these things, a very religious book. And meanwhile, Danica's snooping around in the office. He comes back and she's hiding in a closet. And then from that scene, we don't really find much more about their involvement.
A few things in this scene, again, like leading off of the last one, that I was just like, doesn't make any sense. So I'll get your thoughts on them. So yeah, as you said, they show up and they're trying to, figure out a way to talk to this pastor. They see this lady in the church who I guess either works for or works with the pastor. And the first thing they do is like say, oh, we're here to talk to him. And she says, oh, he's not here. And so Danica says, well, can I use your restroom? She goes off to, as you said, quote unquote, the restroom. And then literally as soon as she leaves, the pastor just appears behind Ava. I was like, is that meant to be a red herring, or was she lying? Like, was that meant to be like, so the audience is saying, that's very weird that she said the pastor is not here. And then he appears behind Ava.
Lo and behold,
I didn't know.
He walks right in.
Literally just appeared right behind Ava as soon as she said, pastor's not here. So I was like, maybe that was trying to throw off the audience a bit. Then, as you said, conveniently, Danica goes into his office, and it's like he just has a scrapbook of all the evidence that he's, tied to Sam Cooper. Why would he just have that on his desk? Like as if he had just been going through it, I suppose, which I thought was very weird. And then Danica hides in the office, in the closet, as you said, and the pastor goes in there to get the book, and the pastor even like kind of hears something going on in the closet.
He's looking straight at the closet.
Yeah, he looked like right at the closet. I'm like, oh, something's going to happen where he's about to get in the closet and Ava's going to interrupt him, or she's going to figure out something. No, like the only thing that happens is that he looks at the closet. We cut to the scene of him giving Ava the book. Ava leaves without her friend that she just came in with, which to me looks very suspicious. Why would you come in with somebody? They're in the quote unquote bathroom, as far as you know, and you just leave when you get your book and she's just in the bathroom. You wouldn't like wait for her. So she leaves, and then it just cuts to the next scene where they're at the cops, basically telling the cops that the pastor has something to do with this. And Danica just got out. Danica, I guess, just walked out the closet. At this point, the audience was laughing. Very weird.
Yeah. And then, we cut to poor Teddy, too. He's at the gym. He just had a workout and everything. And he goes to the sauna just to unwind, chill out. And then he gets, this ominous, creepy message as steam starts flying. And there's conveniently, nobody left in the sauna. And there's a nice little message on the door, which personally would have freaked me the hell out. Like, I'd be like, get me out of this place. Like, I'm not going anywhere in this town anymore. But the message says, you're next. And it's like, huh. I don't recall him mentioning that bit to any other group. You would have thought, like, oh, if he's next, like, let's, make sure he's okay and things like that. They're just whoosh.
No, he's too busy dead the next scene. That's why. But they kind of established Teddy as this guy who just thinks he wants to do everything himself. Because even when he goes to the gym, as you mentioned, he calls up Milo, who we, obviously the group doesn't know is dead, leaves him a voicemail. Oh, I'm headed to the gym. I'm going to try and get jacked so I can fight this guy. So we see that his character is very like, I can just take this fisherman or whatever. We cut to him back at his house now. He's kind of just chilling in the backyard, just drinking a few beers. And then I thought was very odd. He kind of like looks down this corridor at his house, and you see like the fisherman slickers are kind of like there on mannequins, I suppose. The fisherman is actually there instead of it being a mannequin. This is probably the most that somebody has fought back against the fisherman at this point. He gets a good few licks in, gets a few headbutts, punches the fisherman a few times. But because the fisherman has this hook, obviously overpowers him and slashes him enough for him to go down. At this point, I was thinking in my head in the theater, what happened to the harpoon? The harpoon worked so well on the fiance. It just didn't feel like to me that they really wanted these kids dead like they claim. So I was like, this harpoon does not show up again until the ending. He ends up being able to crawl himself over to the front door. The dad comes and answers, sees he's all bloodied, and then the fisherman comes and just kills the father too. We cut to the next day, and they're strung up like a fish. The whole town seeing it. Then the three girls now come up upon this. They are with Ray. They run up into the crowd. They see what has happened. And then this scene also felt rushed. They run away from this because Ray says, you know what? You guys just need to get out of here. This is getting too dangerous. So they run away. And like while they're running, they decide to go onto Teddy's boat and just sail away. While they're running to Teddy's boat, they see Milo's car. And this felt just so strange. They just open the car door. He's dead. And they're like, oh no, Milo's dead. Oh, well, he's dead. We got to keep going. Now we're getting into kind of like the big reveals of everything. So the three girls get onto the boat. Danica and Ava are in the front, like kind of talking about how they're not okay and everything. And then, yeah, the fisherman comes in to start attacking, which, the only way that would be is that if, Stevie is the fisherman. And wouldn't you know it, the fisherman takes off the mask and it's been Stevie the whole time. She explains that she was going through a very rough time when her dad left, that her friends like abandoned her and she was struggling with alcohol, like we said in the beginning. But then she met Sam Cooper and they turned into like a thing. At that night when she ran into everybody, apparently Sam Cooper borrowed the pastor's car to actually go and pick her up from, I guess, her work or wherever they had planned on going. She didn't recognize the car because obviously it's the pastor's car from the night, and didn't know it was him until obviously he floated up. But yeah, she said that after she found out it was Sam, she wanted to kill herself, but then she concocted this whole plan, said, why would I kill myself when I can just kill all of you guys? And then a fight breaks out. They tussle a little bit. Ray comes up in another boat. He's got a gun. They go out to the front of the boat. She kind of uses the hook, gets Danica in the back, throws her off the boat. So, we think she's dead. And then, Ray talks her down a little bit as much as she can. And then he just ends up shooting Stevie. She falls off the boat. And then we think everything is all good.
So I thought they did a good job kind of leading up to it, to this point. Because at this point, everyone thinks, and they showcase it, that everyone thinks that Father Judah is the killer. But then when the cops go to arrest him, they find him already dead. He's posed like he's praying. And then it clicks and we get the reveal that Stevie is the fisherman. And then, yeah, on Teddy's boat, Stevie is attacking Ava and Danica. She reveals that she met Sam in rehab and ultimately just wanted revenge for what happened to him. And then, yeah, Danica and Stevie fight. Ray shows up. Turns out he's been helping Stevie the whole time. He claims the town erased everything that happened years ago, and he wanted to help Stevie make them pay. And then, yeah, on the boat, it all comes to a head. Danica gets stabbed and thrown overboard, which one would think, in a logical sense, that's it. She's dead. And then that's where Stevie then gets shot by Ray and she goes overboard. And then Ava and Ray go back to Ray's bar.
We find out that, the police got called. They're putting it on the news now. And we flash to Julie seeing this on the news. And then she puts two and two together about Ray and Stevie being in cahoots. She rushes off during this whole fight scene. She's already heading there to try and warn Ava and protect Ava. So as you said, yeah, Ava and Ray go back to his bar and he removes his jacket and she sees a bandage where she recalls that when she was fighting the original fisherman, that she ended up being able to stab him in that area. So she puts two and two together. Ray obviously starts attacking her once he sees that she figured it out. And then just in the nick of time, Julie shows up. Yeah, as you said, he's telling Julie, oh, everybody erased everything that we went through, blah, blah, blah. And I hated that reasoning. I didn't like this twist just because I felt it kind of undoes everything that he and Julie went through in those first two movies. I don't really buy this whole, they erased all the trauma I went through, so in revenge, I'm going to put other people through trauma. I always thought that those movies were kind of like a tale of taking accountability for your actions. Like you can't just, especially something so serious as killing somebody, you can't just brush that under the rug. That's always what I took it as. While he's about to kill Julie, Ava gets up and shoots him with the harpoon, and Ray is dead. And the cops come, take Ava to the hospital, and Danica washes up onto a beach. Like, she's still alive somehow. She washes up onto a beach, gets taken to the same hospital. They walk out. They realize they hadn't eaten for a while. You see that they're rekindling their previous friendship from when they used to be best friends before Stevie stepped in. They make a note saying that all of this would have been avoided if men would just go to therapy. And I was like, I don't think that would do anything. As if Stevie just wasn't a part of this. So I thought that was a very weird line for them to say. Then they have a throwaway line that, oh, Stevie's not dead. And then they're eating something on the beach and the movie ends.
The girls reunite and they declare each other soulmates, which I thought was really stupid. And then, yeah, they go grab food on the beach like nothing happened, which is wild. And then, yeah, Ava even says that Stevie is probably still alive because Ray confessed he faked her death. And they're just so nonchalant. Like, they're just like, it's all right. We'll get to that bridge. And it's like, what? Yeah. And then, yeah, roll credits.
Yeah. Before we get into the mid-credits scene, which does, of course, set up a sequel, I do want to mention, kind of glossing over a scene from previously, another legacy character came in a dream sequence, Sherima Michelle Gellar, who's married to Freddie Prinze Jr. A lot of people might know them as Daphne and Fred from the Scooby-Doo live action movies. Yeah, in the scene that we talked about earlier where the girls go to the police to tell them about, the pastor, Danica falls asleep and she dreams of Sarah Michelle Gellar's character as the beauty queen from the original and everything. I just thought that, we should mention that as well. I thought that was a nice little cameo because I knew the other two would be in it, but I didn't think she was going to be in it, which I thought was pretty cool. Just wrapping up, we got a mid-credit scene of Carla from the second movie, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. She was Julie's old roommate in college. She's with her husband now, and they're seeing the news, and she's like, damn, man, Julie can't catch a break. There's another killer coming around, and, it turns out to be Ray and everything, and she obviously knows Ray from the second movie, too. Her husband goes upstairs, and then we hear some noise going on outside, and then we think, oh, now here we go again. Stevie's maybe coming back in the fisherman get up to try and kill her next to avenge Ray's death. Maybe, who knows where the sequel's going, but we see it's just Julie and she's here just catching up after all these years. She invites her in. Julie shows Carla that she's gotten another note. I don't remember exactly what the note said. It doesn't say I know what you did last summer. It says something a little different. She shows this to Carla and is like, yeah, we need to figure this out. And Carla's like, who are we going to fuck up next? And then that's the end of it. And we assume that we'll get another sequel to this, probably with Ava and Danica. Carla and Julie will be going up against probably Stevie again. Maybe we'll find out Ray's not dead. I did not care for this mid-credit scene as I think that this franchise, much like Jurassic World, in my opinion, is overstaying its welcome. It was a fun slasher movie in the 90s. It was very much of that time. You want to bring it back for one more hurrah. Great. Now everything is a remake. For them to go and do another sequel, I'm not too inspired by that.
Yeah. Not too much there. Which one did you, I know, you touched on Jurassic World. Which one did you prefer between this and that?
It's very weird. So as I said, I rated Jurassic World higher, giving it more stars than this, just because I feel like despite the fact Jurassic World was very by the numbers and you and I were both not too impressed by it, cinematically, it was very good, very well made, like all the Jurassic Park movies are, the CGI and everything. So I enjoyed that aspect more. I think as a film, it's better. In the theater, I enjoyed this movie better. I was not as bored. How about you?
I kind of lean more Jurassic World just because, if it's as simple as can be, I would rather watch the better film. And I think Jurassic World is a better film. It's close, but yeah, I just wasn't impressed by this. Now, granted, I've never really been a fan of the franchise. My scores for the previous two were very low. They would not be something I'd go out of my way to watch. But hey, when the people request and vote on this film, we got to deliver.
Deliver we did. We watched it and we've reviewed it now. I mean, now we'll get into our final thoughts and our ratings. Overall, I think we touched on a lot of these points in the beginning non-spoiler portion of this video. I think that this movie, once again, it seems like they had an idea of continuing the legacy, I guess, a little bit, keeping the spirit of this franchise alive. At first, I thought it was going to just be a flat-out reboot. They were just going to have a new group of kids and just basically redo the first movie, and then it's just a restart. Then I saw the first trailer, and Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt are in it, which I thought was interesting. It wasn't a very good movie. It wasn't a bad movie. It was very fine. It was exactly what you would imagine from this franchise if you've seen the other ones. I ended up giving this movie 2.5 stars out of 5. Solid 5 out of 10 for me.
I gave it 2 stars out of 5.
I mean, when you come to these movies as an audience, you're not expecting Oscar-worthy cinematography, Oscar-worthy action, Oscar-worthy acting. If you are a fan of this franchise, you'll be happy with what you get. Depending on how you feel about the twist ending with Rey, that might ruin things for you. But the theater I was in was laughing, and there were people there from that generation, like maybe like 5-10 years older than me, that would have grown up with this movie, and you could tell that the murmurs when the references would pop up. So I think that it did its job fairly well, but don't expect too much from this one.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So as I said, that'll conclude our review of I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025. Next week, we are back in a big way with the last blockbuster of July, Fantastic Four: First Steps. So definitely be on the lookout for our thoughts on that next week, Sunday. I'm hearing good things about the movie. At first, the test screenings were saying it was mid. Now I'm hearing nothing but good things so far for that movie. So I'm a little bit more excited than I was before. So that should be good.
I've heard many things saying that it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm as tired as in that joke as I am with seeing Pedro Pascal in every movie now, I think. I think it's getting to that point now. But yeah, I'm excited to see where the MCU goes. As far as this movie, Jurassic World, Superman clears them both, in my opinion.
Easily.
I'm still hearing very polarizing things about that movie still. It's not going to be for everybody, but I really loved it. I'm interested to see how Fantastic Four stacks up against it. But yeah, do you have any other closing thoughts before we sign off?
No, I am all good. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and I hope you enjoy Fantastic Four next week.
Yes, indeed. We will see you all next week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.